viewers, I'm so glad that you're with us here today. This is such an important program. When we're talking about caregivers and how we can show care and concern for those around us, I think it's something that we really need to be tuned into. Burnout is a big thing in our society. Doing too much, growing weary. And the Bible tells us, don't grow weary. Keep working. Don't retire. If you're out there today and you're tired, well, join the club. But we're supposed to continue on. And we have a couple of gentlemen today who are our guests who are going to really help us understand ways that we can get refreshed and renewed and to feel better and to be all that we can be, living victorious lives for Christ. And Chad Garman has been here. In fact, both of our guests have been here with us before. Chad is the YMCA Executive Director of Christian Initiatives and Community Partnerships, and he's here to tell us a little bit about what the YMCA is doing to come alongside wonderful pastors like Pastor Andy Searles with Church Together. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I love having our return guest, our almost winner of the Marriage Game Show. Congratulations for being a runner-up. Very proud of you.
Thank you for saying that.
You did great. We had so much fun.
Is your judge and jury still recounting the votes?
We're still counting, and the jury is still out on that. You might still get your #1 prize. Right. You and Tracy were adorable, though, and we had so much fun with you. So thanks for doing that. And Chad, now that you're doing what you're doing for the YMCA, tell us about Healthy Pastors, Healthy Churches.
So the YMCA of Central Florida has set a goal to affect the health lives of 600,000 Central Floridians. And we realize that we can't do that by expecting people to come in the doors of the Y. Mm-hmm. So we have to, just like the church, we have to go out into our community.
Good.
And part of my role and responsibility was to go out into the church community and see where we can partner together, see where it made sense for us to offer the programs that the Y is doing in the local church context. And it became very clear to us very quickly that we needed to take care of our pastors. Mm-hmm. Our pastors are tired. They're oftentimes not managing stress well. They're burning the candle at both ends, if not multiple, just ways that they're being torn.
Yes.
Burnout's a real issue for our pastors, and so we wanted to look at their health holistically, spirit, mind, and body. It's what the Y has been about for 170 plus years, and so we wanted to care for our pastors well. And so we said, what does it look like to care for them well? That as they stand before their congregation, they can say, hey, I'm on a health journey as well. And you can join me and you can join with me. And together we can be healthy for the kingdom. We can do what God's called us to do and be about as we take care of each other.
You know, Chad, I think most people think about the YMCA and they don't think holistic. They think, okay, go to the Y and you can get healthy physically. And they do a great job with that. But for you all to have a concern now for pastors to really delve into emotionally, what are they like? Spiritually, how are they feeling? How are they coping with all the stress? Pastors don't have a lot of people to talk to outside their wives and their families, right?
That's right. That's why we're here today, so I can lean on your shoulders.
So how has the YMCA in this initiative, this program, helped you personally, Andy?
I've loved what Chad and his team have put together. There are 3 components of it. The first is a physical training component. The second is a mental health component. And the third, a spiritual health. And we're about 2/3 of the way through the program.
How long is the program?
It's a year-long program.
Oh, wow.
But we started with the physical.
Do you meet weekly?
In different stages, have different times.
Okay.
So the physical was the first one, and that was a weekly meeting with a health consultant from the Y.
Good.
And she was fantastic. She helped with eating and exercise and accountability and all those physical things, which was great. And once that was completed, we moved on to some of the spiritual, emotional care. And through the generosity of the Y, they connected us with an organization called Care for Pastors, which is a resource in Lakeland that helps pastors maintain their emotional and spiritual health.
Ron and Rodetta Cook?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've had them on before. We love that ministry. They do a great job caring for pastors.
They do, and their staff is just fantastic.
Yes.
It is really...
Did you need that, Andy?
More than I realized.
Yeah.
More than I realized.
Yeah.
And the gentleman who I've been meeting with is actually speaking at our church soon, and I'm really excited about that. But we would sit together and we would have coffee and he would just say, how you doing? How you doing? And I was amazed at just the words and the thoughts and the feelings that kind of came out of me.
Why were you able to open up to somebody like that rather than maybe your brother Chad here?
I think there's a couple of reasons. One, this gentleman is outside of the sphere that I minister
So you
in,
felt safe.
so it was a lot safer
Yes.
to do that. Secondly, he was a seasoned veteran in ministry. You know, he's an older gentleman who carries himself with that grandfather demeanor, you know, and as we were talking, I just felt like a young kid, and he was excited by what I was doing, yet also cared deeply about what I could do. And
because your family, your extended family, they're still in England, right?
that's right.
So you don't really have family here.
Sure.
Outside your immediate family. You don't have a grandfather or a father over here.
Right, and it's great to be able to pick up the phone
That's
and
great.
talk to family. But this was a blessing in a different kind of way.
So you made a real connection with this gentleman.
Yeah, we've struck up a friendship too.
Good.
Which you know, a lot of people have a stigma about going to see a counselor, but I'm a big fan of counseling. You know, we go to a doctor once a year for a checkup. I'm kind of of the belief that we need to go to a counselor once a year for an emotional checkup.
Right.
And honestly, we probably need to sit down with some of our pastors and elders and say, hey, help me give a spiritual checkup on a regular basis.
So that was spiritual. The physical. What's the third component?
That was the emotional.
That was emotional.
So the third component is the spiritual.
Okay.
And,
so he wasn't your spiritual mentor. He was your emotional mentor.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, there's a significant
There's going to be an overlap.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the strength of the program too, is that they've designed it in such a way that there's not just overlap between the physical and the spiritual and the emotion. What am I trying to say? They all overlap.
Sure.
Right? We are whole people. And we certainly need to be whole people. And God calls us to be whole people. And so often we kind of can I say that again? What's the word I'm trying to say?
Compartmentalize?
Yes.
Good, Chad. Thank you. I wasn't sure where Andy was going
this
with
is
that
another
one.
service that the YMCA provides. They help me with difficult words.
Enhancing your vocabulary. All right.
So it's a very holistic approach,
Okay.
and I appreciate that.
So you came up with the idea, Chad? This was your brainchild?
So at the Y, we love committees, right? Just like the church. So as we sat down with a mission group within the YMCA and talked about how could we care for our pastors, we just started getting all of these ideas about how we could care for the pastors, and we were able to take some existing Y programs, some partnerships that we were able to form along the way, and again, look at it holistically. A lot of the pastors that we talked with, we found out authentic relationships were something that they struggled with. There isn't that safe person,
Right.
Because they're always having to be pastor.
So would you say that that was the number one thing that you've seen with pastors outside of Andy, the other handful of people that you were dealing with? The biggest area of need would be companionship, authenticity, friendships?
It's definitely a big part of how you become a whole person. We need each other. We've been designed and made to need each other and to fellowship with each other. And while we can find that in our spouse, oftentimes we try to protect them as well from what's going on. And so really finding that way to have that authentic relationship and to have someone to walk beside and walk along became a real important part of the process for us, and something that we really wanted to get outside of what maybe was thought of as the normal for the YMCA, and really invest in our pastors who are investing in us.
Chad, when we were talking before we went on the air, you were telling me there must be an enormous need because you sent out, I guess, an email to about 300 local pastors?
We did. We sent out that email to a little over 300 pastors. We had 33 pastors who filled out the application. We were only able to, in the first round, kind of take a fraction of those pastors and put them into the program. And so we still have a great need for the support.
Yes.
So more pastors can get involved.
So you're going
in
to
the
do
program.
this in year 2. After this first year, you're planning to do this again for another group of pastors?
We are. We're currently accepting additional applications for next year.
How would our viewers know to recommend their pastor if they wanted to? How do
they can reach out to me at the YMCA.
Okay.
And we can get you the contact information for how to email me, your pastor's name, and I'll send out the application to them. They can fill it out. There's an interview with a team that just wants to get to know the pastors, where they are, and how can we serve you better. And then we'll go from there.
So Andy, if you could say that there's one thing, the biggest thing that you gleaned out of this, what would it be, this experience?
I think the overall program screams you're not alone, right? Often ministry can be very lonely. You're carrying responsibilities that come with your position, which is a privilege, but it can get a little bit heavy sometimes. We're privy to information and troubles in people's lives that's not our story to tell, and we need to kind of carry that as a sacred trust. And as you do that, it's very easy to think that you're alone. But with the three different components, I think all of them say, hey, no, you're not alone. We want to help you to carry the load and to be the best that God has called you to be.
I can't imagine how difficult it would be, truthfully, to be a pastor. I know even as a mom and a grandmom and somebody who works here at the station, there are days, Andy and Chad, where I feel pulled at from every single direction. And I just sometimes want to have somebody hear me out and let me talk to them about how difficult life can be and how you can't meet the needs of every person. I mean, you've got a whole congregation there at church together of people who every person has a need, and yet they give it all to you. I mean, how difficult is that?
I think if we tried to do it in our own strength, it would push me under. But I think there's a lot of pastoral ministry which really is about kind of trying as best we can to reflect Jesus, right? So that as people come to us, we're inviting them to follow Jesus, and as people dump stuff with us, we seek to cast our cares onto Jesus as he invites us to do in Scripture.
Yeah, well, with Jesus, the burden is light. You know, I always go back to that verse, is that I can't carry the burden. The burden is Jesus's, and he will make it my shoulders light. Chad, let's talk about you for just a second. We're almost out of time, but just the fact that you have a heart for pastors, where did that come from?
Well, I did serve before coming to the Y. I served on a church staff, and so I understand a little bit about just a little bit about what our pastors are going through. And as I got to know the YMCA more, I realized that the church needs a lot of what the YMCA has, just as the YMCA has what the church needs. And so there's a beautiful relationship between the local body of believers at a church and a YMCA. And we're really community partners, and we're going for the same goal. And so when we can partner together, it becomes a beautiful thing.
Well, I appreciate so much what you're doing there at the Y in a lot of different areas. I know there are other initiatives too that the YMCA does, but for the community to grab hold of some of these opportunities, that's one reason we wanted to air this segment today, is to raise awareness of what all the YMCA does for you, for your churches, for your pastors, for individuals. The next thing that Chad's going to probably do is have an initiative to help talk show hosts. Would that be your next thing? Could you do that so that I have
we'll
a
get you signed
like
up before I leave today.
That would be great. Any last thoughts? Any last things you all want to say?
You're going to need a big team to manage
that
program.
Right. That's going to be tough. That will be your biggest challenge. Anything else you guys want to say before we go on?
I just want to encourage the pastors. You know, it's hard. We know it is. You know it is. But you don't have to go through it alone. There are people to help, and the Y has been a great blessing in my life, and I'm sure they can in yours as well.
Thank you. Andy Searles, Church Together, Senior Pastor there. I know what a wonderful work you're doing there. And Chad Garman with the YMCA, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having us.
God bless you, and may God continue to bless the YMCA as it ministers to all of us in the community. If you want more information about what the YMCA is doing, you can go to that website that'll be up on your screen for you. And stay with us, because we've got more on caring for the caregiver.